The
Yeah.
plan is so good. And the plan, so they're going to have basically do fake airbending. They'll have Sokka and Katara do a fake fight. And then there's a vent in the ground that they're going to use airbending from Aang to like make the rock, like the boulder levitate. And they'll be like, look, it's airbending. And so this is great for a multitude of reasons. One, it's a great comedic bit because Aang is like, yeah, I'll play along. And then he is like late on his cue, which is always a good bit. Like,
which is the thing,
never,
Aang ignores his main responsibilities. He rather than have fun than do the main thing.
He's just like messing around. And then you also get the bit of the Fire Nation soldiers being stupid because Momo is behind the boulder. And they're like, the lemur's earthbending. And Sokka has to be like, no, you idiots, it's the girl. Like, and they're like,
so good.
Right. Which is just, again, a great bit. But the other thing, and we'll get there more in detail later, but like this vent plan will come back in the end of the episode and the climax, like them utilizing this technique is very important for later on in the episode.
It's not just a joke.
So like it just works on so many levels. It advances the plot in a really smart way. It shows character stuff. You get a good comedic joke in there. Like you get there's layers and
nothing
layers
is unnecessary.
It's so,
everything seen. It's Chekhov's gun. Everything seen is used. And they follow that to a T.
It's so we get that, and then Katara gets taken away, and they take Katara to the prison, and Aang and Sokka will follow her on Appa, and so this is where the oil rig gets introduced, which is a coal rig, I guess technically. And so the warden of the prison is like talking about things, and he's like, I would rather think of you guys as like a family, and like y'all aren't prisoners, like if you just do what you're supposed to do, like it'll be fine. And he also explains that the reason they're on this rig way out in the middle of nowhere is so that there's no earth anywhere around that they can bend. That way there's no way the earthbenders can escape, which like I made note of this. I was like, that's won't work in a few years, whenever, or like
in a few years when they discover they can bend metal. But
I'm like, oh man, that's that.
So I wonder if this was before, like they made this plot before they even thought that they could do that. But or I wonder if they knew, but they were like, but see, this is an example of how nobody thought that far, nobody thought that big. Everybody
like
was
no one
thinking basic.
In the universe thought that, like in the universe of the show, thought that it could be a possibility that like earthbenders could bend metal, like that that's that you would get there from that. And so it's just a really like that's an interesting thing to like point out and think about. And I do wonder if they had already been thinking about that, or if that's something that came up later, or like what. Either way, it's super interesting.
And fun fact, the warden is voiced by George Takei, who's a great actor. You'll know him from other things. But when he was younger, he was in a U.S. operated Japanese relocation camp during World War II. And so it's very much like a similar experience and a similar thing. But it's funny because he's playing the warden. So I wonder, I just wonder for him how that felt to,
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if he's ever like talked about that and like,
I know I couldn't find much on that.
Or stuff. That's a super interesting like tidbit though to note. So the rig is made entirely of metal, so they can't bend it until later. But they're real. I bet they all get so like pissed whenever they eventually later find out that like you can bend metal if you figure.
They're probably like, damn, I spent all that time. But it is like, isn't it? Bending metal is a very like it takes a while to learn. Like you have to be a pro to be able to do that. That's like a next level.
I can't remember exactly how they talk about it in Korra too, but I think they talk about that it's like not necessarily every earthbender can also be a metal bender, because I know that
I think there is
Bolin doesn't bend metal, but he is able to do the lava bending, which also the fact that lava bending is an earth bending thing and not a fire bending thing is kind of interesting. All the different sub bending stuff is really fascinating. There's a lot
very
going
interesting.
on there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, which we'll get to. Audience, we'll get to that.
So Katara and Haru meet in the prison yard, and we meet Haru's father, voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, who also voices Captain Gantu in Lilo and Stitch, which is cool. His voice is so recognizable. Like you hear him talk, and you instantly know him. Like even if you haven't, like
you're like, who is that guy? I know him.
He sounds a lot like I'm blanking on the voice actor's name, but like current Kratos, the dude who voiced Kratos in the last two God of War games. Like I literally in my notes was like Kratos question mark, and then it's not, but it sounds a lot like
Oh,
him.
it sounds like it.
Yeah.
He's got a great deep
So
voice though. It's awesome.
yeah, he's got that super. It's just a deep bass. It's great, very
Yeah.
commanding, and like you're like, oh, you know what you're talking about, no matter
Like,
what.
damn. Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I'll listen to you. So Katara tries to ask them what their plan is to like escape, and he's like,
Mhm.
no, the plan is just to survive and hope that eventually we'll get out of here. Like we're not. There is no plan. It's just
Mhm.
we go day to day, and like that's enough.
We
for
just
now.
try to survive. Yeah.
Yeah, and they say that it'll just be worse if they try to fight. Like there are people's lives at stake, and like fighting would make it worse. Like we've lost here. We just
Which
have
is
to
so
like.
real. I've seen a lot of some people have commented on this episode and they're like, why won't they fight? Why won't they do anything? That's so weird that they won't fight. And it's like, this is such a real thing that happens. Like
Yeah, I mean
these being able to
part
have
of it.
control of people like that, like you get to them to a certain level where they don't want to take the risks of hurting their loved ones. Like it's scary. It's a real risk to stand up like that. And it's you like people think like, oh, just be brave. But like the bravery it actually takes to stand up to somebody that could kill you
Yeah,
is insane. And that's why like these characters in this show are so great. And I think too, because they're kids, they don't think of it that harshly. But like as an adult and when you're older, it becomes more scary and you realize how much is at risk. But as a kid,
Yeah.
you're not thinking that big. And that's why I think Katara is so brave and she's able to stand up and give these speeches and they're all able to dive in head first.
I love the like her giving that speech and then the just no reaction. It's so like one, her speech is great. Again, just moving into her like more stuff for her character, but then the reaction of everyone just being like, whatever, like
Yeah.
just no, like it just highlights the. It's just oppression to the nth degree. Like it's just like
Like
they've
how subservient
completely
they've become.
yeah, like they've just completely defeated them. Like their morale is non-existent. There is no hope for them. They don't believe that what she's saying is an actual possibility or that it's even worth it to try. And so like she feels pretty bad at that point, and is like defeated. And then in the night, Aang and Sokka show up and they try to get Katara to leave, but she refuses because she won't give up on them, which again is so good. Katara's like, no, like these people need help. I'm going to help them.
It's her whole thing about hope and that they make fun of in the play that happens way at the end of season 3. But they always make fun of Katara for there just needs to be more hope in the world.
But she's right. Like, and
but
it like,
does. That's her thing.
And and the show like validates that though, right? Like she does that, and against all odds, it works. And like that's the thing that you do need, and it sends that message of like, yeah, like, and it's a kind of almost corny like hopefulness, right? But it's good, and that's a useful thing. And like you do need people like that, and it's important to recognize and believe in that sort of. It is worth having hope, no matter what.
Yeah,
and like that's great.
It's more relevant now than ever, which is crazy. Like this episode, I think the message of it too keeps coming up again and again.
Also, a note that I made about the visual language of the Fire Nation and about the entire rig and all of it. It's so ominous and like again just like leads into their like the oppressive feeling of them. Like the first time you see the rig, it's just this crazy huge bulking thing and like all the sharp points and jagged edges, and of course they like bathe it in the red light at first, and like it's just so, again, the show is so good at like visually telling you how to feel or like showing you how to feel, which again is like such a sharp contrast.
They're imposing. Yeah,
like, and it's a great contrast to the scene that we saw like in Haru's village where it's the beautiful sunsets and like the open fields and like all of that, and then you like have the Fire Nation and you see how terrible the environments that they create are and how unfriendly and just bad it is. You're
like industrial and
it's like, just
it looks like it just poisons the earth.
Yeah, which is what they're doing. They're just stripping the village for its resources and just burning it and just making these huge castles of terror, essentially. Like it's awful. Like it's so bad. And so we get that. We get them trying to convince Qatar to leave, and she won't. And so they both decide to stay instead of leaving her there.
Mhm.
And I love the two guards seeing Appa fly away, and they try to explain to the warden, and he just like won't hear it. And then he knocks the one into the water, and he tells the other one to like go tell the captain, whatever. And
He's
he's
like,
so
sir, that was the captain. He's
so
like, then find somebody else who I didn't throw in the water.
the warden is so funny, and I also like his character is so great. He's just like a not
Like campy villain.
yeah, he's just so
yeah.
like campy to the level of almost incompetence, right? Like where he's just like,
yes,
I'm so right, and I'm gonna do that like no matter what. And it's just funny. It reads as like hilarious, even though he's a terrible person.
but like you do see truth behind it. Like there is like, I see what they were going for. I know that person.
Yeah, you can
Like,
see that kind of terrible.
It's not
leader.
just for. It's not like, oh, let's make him funny for kids. Like it's.
Mhm.
There's still truth to it.
Yeah, it's the like it's the important thing. I've seen actors talk about this. Bryan Cranston, I know, has talked about it when people have talked about like playing a comedic role or like a comedic character, how like the character can't think that they're comedic or campy because then you ruin it. Like they have to fully believe in what they're doing. And like you see that here. Like he fully believes like he's in the right, like what he like throwing that
he's
dude
not
off
being funny. That's real.
He's playing it completely straight, and like that's what sells the camp is that like to him it's not it's not a campy thing. Like it works. And like that's why it's so good. And you're like, yeah, that's great. I love it.
You're like, it's why it works. It's why it sells. But anyway,
yeah, like you just have to. It's just the full commit to things. Like if you full commit to whatever, your audience like will follow and will get it, which is great.
Yeah.
So they realize that they're burning coal, which is Earth, and so they devise their plan to shut off all the vents, and then Aang will push the coal through the vents and have it explode into the main courtyard so that everyone can
actually use it. Because I think the thing is that it's so they put it underground and they keep it so protected that they have such an eye over the earthbenders that they can't use it. They don't have like an opportunity to actually use it.
And I feel like they also probably just didn't think about it, I guess. Like the earthbenders didn't think that much about them using the coal and that they could use that.
I don't want to believe that though. Like I feel like
at least one person would
like at least one person would be like, oh, we have coal, we could bend that. But I think I feel like it could be explained that the firebenders thought about it, and because the only reason they use it is because Aang brings it up to the
surface.
The surface.
Yeah.
And they're able.
So again, though,
they're all
the
able to get their
plan
hands on it.
is the same plan that they used earlier in the episode with the giant rock, except just on a bigger scale. And it's literally how you solve the main conflict in the episode. Like it's not introducing a Deus Ex Machina at the end of the episode to solve the problem. It's bringing it back to what you saw earlier. And so they use that. And then even still, after the coal explodes into the courtyard, they refuse to fight. Like Katara gives another speech and is like, you can fight back now. And they still don't. And again, that's just the like how powerful those fear tactics are. Like you can't, they don't have any hope. And so they're like, no.
I like how it shows though that it just takes one person. And that's Haru. Like Haru stands up and he launches
character growth for him. He refused to use earthbending in the space of fear earlier in the episode, even though Katara was trying to convince him to, and so he finally did. But now he does it on his own. I mean, not entirely on his own, because
yeah, not entirely. He does it, and then his father's like, "Well, if you're doing it, then I'm coming in to help you," and then that tidal waves into everybody else coming in.
Yeah, which is again, it's cool. We get our first I think full scale a bunch of benders fighting each other battle, which is sick. I also though,
you're right.
This battle, I've always had a kind of question mark over it because I feel like the firebender should just be able to burn all the coal super quickly, and that's kind of it.
Wait, I never thought of that.
They use the coal as shields and stuff, like the earthbenders do as shields or whatnot. But I'm like, if they make it hot enough, they could just. I guess coal doesn't burn fast enough for that. Would be the explanation.
Coal experts out there, let us know how does coal work? Because actually, I don't know.
I don't know. I know it burns pretty slowly, but I don't. I mean, and they do show it catching on fire and stuff and burning some. So I guess that would be the reason why. But I'm always shouldn't they just be able to put a lot of heat on that, and then their ammunition's kind of gone.
Suspension of disbelief. I'm gonna
But
but like that's the thing about the show. Like that's the one thing we can think about.
Yeah, like that's the only thing where I'm like, maybe this wouldn't work. But also, I don't really know how Cole works in that.
I don't really know how Cole works. Yeah,
on that level.
On that level.
And then also they're bending fire and earth. So like, I guess
yeah, like also. They have superpowers, so let's calm down.
So it's fine. It's they have superpowers on a kids show, so I'll give them their coal shields.
I'll give them
against
that.
The fire.
I'll give them that.
Like,
yeah. But I do love this. Is we see some great bending here. We see some great different uses of bending. We see how earthbenders work together to do things, and I do love that. Is it Haru and his father that push the coal together to make one
big thing? I also love the machine gun funnel that Aang makes.
Yes, that Aang makes.
Air
that's so creative. The air tunnel shoot.
Yeah,
they like put a piece of coal in and it boop pops out the other side.
And they just start like doing a bunch in there, and he's like essentially operating like a Gatling gun type thing. It's just like
you just see him doing that.
So that's cool. I mean, the whole fight sequence again with all the fights in the show is just great. The choreography is awesome. The animation rules. So we get them doing that, and then the earthbenders hoist the soldiers above the water, and the warden pleads, "Please, I can't swim." And Tyra says, "Don't worry, I heard cowards float," which is so good. Yeah, I saw that you put bars in your notes.
I wrote in the comments bars, multiple exclamation points.
Absolutely baller line. Like, dude, it's just, like it's so good. Like, come on, it doesn't get better than that.
That's hard. That goes hard.
Yeah, it's amazing. So that's them being liberated, and then the ending is them like going around their ships, and Haru and Tyro thank Katara. And then Katara realizes that her necklace is gone. She doesn't have it anymore. Smash cut to Zuko on
We just realized we didn't see the entire episode. We didn't see any cuts to Zuko and Iroh this whole episode.
It was just on the gang, which is
just
super
on the gang.
Cool. And then
the first episode to do that.
We get so we get them, and he finds the necklace, dun dun dun, and that's how the episode ends. Which also I think it's really like serendipitous that he's just like immediately on the rig after all of this stuff happened. Like it's not at all elaborated on like how
he just knew. He was like, something's going on. Well, I'm sure they heard like the whole rig has been taken over.
Yeah, or something. Like
SOS. Going down and they escaped before they got there. But
but so he finds the necklace. Which is good and will come into play later. But yeah, all of that stuff is
great. Cliffhanger. Hey, Aspect listener, enjoying the show?
Then be sure to subscribe here on The Aspect so you never miss an episode.
And check out more episodes and clips on our playlist here.
Thanks so much for watching, and...
Lameo Hotman.